Good morning, everybody. John Fielkley here for GAI Insights, giving the GAI news briefing about what's essential, important, or optional in the world of generative AI and sometimes AI itself. I'm here today with Luda, and Adam is driving across the barren plains of Australia, and he's going to join us as he can. And David DeLello is having some technical difficulties, but he'll catch up with us in a bit. So on this first one, we have OpenAI has created, let me go ahead and share the present, created a safety and security committee. Now, on this particular one, let's see. Oh, sorry. Let me go ahead and present, share screen. Okay. This particular one, what they've decided to do is create a committee responsible for making recommendations for security decisions in 90 days. So let's see here. I'm going to share this. And we have in here, they put on a number of folks. We've got AI technical and policy experts, Alexander Madry, who's the head of preparedness, Lillian Wang, John Schulman, and Jacob Patchak. What do you think of this, Luda? Is this much ado about nothing or something important?
No, I think it's optional. It's not surprising that they had to do something because they disbanded the safety and the security group essentially. And it's still, there's an alignment, I think, happening within OpenAI. It hasn't completed. So this is just a statement that they are watching. And it's amazing how many people they put on this committee, right? This at least half of the board, and then half of the executive group, and then there's security experts and advisors and whatnot. I'm not sure they're going to be very productive for a while until they sort it out. So optional. I think this is a triple no burger, whatever Paul says.
Yes, triple nothing burger. Yeah, no, I agree. I thought it was optional as well. They have to do something. You know, people are leaving saying that these folks are too commercial. They don't care enough about safety. So I've read it as an optional. All right. Let's head to the next one. David, you with us? You want me to keep going?
I'm with you, but you can go ahead and keep hosting.
All right. We are now going to how Airbus uses generative AI to, let me go ahead and share this screen. Let's see, stop that one. Share this one, share screen. All right. Here we've got how Airbus is using generative AI to reinvent itself. And there are a number of places they use this. This is about the creation of all kinds of co-pilots and robots to help in different places. One of the things kind of interesting, if you Airbus, which, as you know, is a combination of the Brits and the French and the Germans, mostly Brits and French. If you actually click on this little video here, it shows, someone creating a hole in a part, and it's all in inches, which I thought was kind of funny, given the fact that they're all metric. I'm pretty sure Airbus is all metric, but anyway, I don't know why they're building their AI in inches, but this struck me as an optional thing. Interesting story, some good applications, but I don't think important or essential. But what did you think here, David? Where'd you weigh in on this one?
Yeah, very optional. They really didn't provide any detail about how they were using it. But I will say, when I first saw the title of this article, my mind went to, okay, generative AI in an airplane, and it made me get a little squeamish. But we don't even know how they're using it, really. After reading this article, I had very little insight on that. So definitely optional.
What do you mean? It's right here. They're using it in a safe, responsible, ethical, and sustainable way.
Great. I'm glad that they're doing that. That tells me nothing.
It tells you nothing.
Yeah, I think it does say something. So what it says is that they started the journey with data and machine learning 2015, 16, whatever it says. So that's the prior way before Gen AI. And they put their house in order, which is incredible for such a big company. So this is important because they wouldn't be able to do Gen AI without doing that. So now and then the second fact that they shared, that they have 600 cases, right, that they now prioritize, some that are outlooking, some are internal, and they're now working on it. So I just think that this is, even though optional, agree, but it is large company joining the slew of enterprises to put generative AI to the use, and they're excited about it. So that's good.
Okay, so we're definitely going on optional here. And let's get to the next article.
So Ankash is with us. John?
Oh, how are you? All right, Ankash, you want to take us up? I've got this up here. Let me just take us through this one. You can take us through the next one. And Adam, was that on page? All right. So AI on trial. Legal models hallucinate in 1 out of 6 queries. And this is from the venerable Stanford University Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence Institute. It's saying that there's, convincing, the bad news, it's convincing mistakes for lawyers, and lawyers are adopting it. And some of the reports of the difficulty of having to go through everything. Does it really give any labor savings when you have to go back and redo everything, or at least recheck it? So what do we think here? David, you want to take this off?
So this, I actually felt that this was important. There we go, because I think this chart kind of says it all, right? And actually, if you read the article, it talks about the fact that these companies, it's Thomson Reuters that they looked at, and LexisNexis. So they didn't look at Harvey, which I'd be curious to see what the results are for that tool, because it's been around the longest. But it mentions that they use RAG, which obviously we know is the way that companies are trying to minimize the hallucinations. But, it's not foolproof. Here it says 70% of the time it's still hallucinated. So I like this article just because it gets into some data, basically, and it provides some insight onto how much RAG can improve accuracy. And I'm sure, that's going to vary widely across the board, depending on how you implement it. But, we keep hearing, right, that, I'll just use RAG, and everything will be okay. That's not the case. You're still going to have some issues. And I think another issue that this pointed out, even though they talk about it in the legal context, I see these tools do this every day, where it may provide an answer, but it's not exactly, basically it's just not exactly on point. It's like sort of a right answer, but not. And I find it frustrating. Some people, though, may think it's really the answer and use it, and it's not sufficient. So I thought this article was important. It's not long. It's good research. I think it's worth reading.
I agree with you, David. I think it is an important article. It highlights what to watch out for, how it happens, and essentially calls for what we need to do to make sure that the tools available to highlight the hallucinations, and off answers.
Yeah, here's the kind of flow chart for the typical use of RAG in the context of it. And I thought this was interesting up here, how it actually amplified stupid queries. So here the query is, why did Justice Ginsburg dissent in Obergefell? I don't know how to pronounce that. But she didn't dissent. And so then they say, okay, well, she dissented, and it comes up with this notion of copyright, which had nothing to do with the case. So it amplifies idiocy in a very coherent way. Sounds like some friends I know. Anyway, Adam, any thoughts?
No, I think David's pretty much nailed it. It's two cautionary tales, right? One is the importance of RAG in terms of enhancing the capabilities and reducing hallucinations, but that isn't the panacea, as it says right there on the screen, right? And that even still, almost 20% of the time, these things were making up answers. So it's important to understand this. I'm curious. We've reviewed before a bit in the news about the option of using RAG and then supplementing with internet searches to validate.
Yes.
It would be really interested to see how that performs in a similar assessment.
Yes.
And David, you mentioned another I'm assuming legal fine-tuned model that they didn't test. So they may have been a bit of cherry picking to make a point as well. But I think it's important to understand regardless of whether you're in the law industry or not.
All right, so we're giving it the big I for important. Kevin and Dr. Julie Alig also agree. This is important news. On to the next one. Let's see. Pankaj, I turn it over to you.
Good, John. Just sharing my screen.
All right.
Okay. So this one comes from EU and it talks about the task force that has been trying to understand how they can put some restrictions on OpenAI from a compliance perspective, but they have come up empty till now. So no sort of conclusions in terms of how they can put some sort of compliance support on ChatGPT.
All right. So for those of you who are old enough to remember Mad Magazine, where they had Alfred E. Newman on the cover, and his motto was "What me worry." Here we have the "What me worry" crowd over at OpenAI. Regulation? What's that? Anyway, what do you think of this one, Luda?
Well, the article is optional in my view, but it highlights that this is a nascent technology and they really do not know what to do about it and how to enforce it. They are struggling, and I understand why. It's mostly about personal data. People put a lot of stuff on their Facebook and other social media, and it's opinions, it's their own thing, their own personal things, emotions, what have you. And this is all scraped right into the models. So the question is, how do you protect it? And the article goes into what you can do and how do you enforce it. And it's very clear we don't know. But my cautionary thing to everyone, do not put the stuff you don't want to be used in training on the net. It's our culture is against that. So I think it will be an ongoing issue. But the article is important. One thing I want to say, so the reason they have to act is because they have, across the board in Europe, cases, complaints of people getting their data wrong, and then the model refusing to make corrections and the like. So there's real cases to be dealt with.
Okay, so important or optional?
Optional.
You said it again. You said important a couple times in your description, but then
it's important that this is optional.
I'm going important, and I was borderline essential, and here's why. Wow. I'm going to throw out a finger in the air stat that 95% of AI leaders have not read the GDPR, have not read any of the laws coming out of the EU. And I feel like this article will give you a really good view into what you need to navigate there, because you probably didn't read those. At least read this one. It'll take you 5 minutes to get a nice grounding on what's going on over there.
All right. So we got an important. Adam, where are you on this bad boy?
I was optional. I think David makes a good case. I'm going to leave it to you to weigh in. I'll sit promptly on the fence in between them, John.
All right, so I'm going to push this over to important. All right, important is. Love those Europeans. Bureaucracy reigns. What do we do without them? Well, they've actually lived through regimes that use the information they had. And we're about to. No, let's not go there. Okay. Gosh. We go to the next article, please. Retail and Gen AI.
The next one from Bain and Company talks about how you can scale the early returns that companies have gained in retail, and it provides some frameworks on how to think about that.
All right, I think I was on the hook here to lead this off. Beautiful little Bain chart there. Love it. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff here in terms of how you expand into the retail space. How the early, experimentation really leads to ongoing capability. Typical kind of, Bain analysis that looks at, how do you accelerate over time in a learning curve kind of way. Makes mistakes. Makes some good points about how you can start to avoid mistakes in the context of growing this over time. So I had it as optional, but as I look at it, that was last night when I was looking at it. I'd put this as important. I guess the thing that kind of annoyed me about it is 3 key tests in the thing. They talk about the change management test. Well, give me a break. Everything's about change management. That's why they pay you money as a manager, for crying out loud. You're supposed to. If you leave the status quo, you can run it with a trained monkey. You don't need a human. So that kind of made me, that was pablum. And democratization and talent. I didn't find those useful. But looking back on it, growing from the core, which is a wonderful thing they do, I would say important. What do you folks think?
I would say I threw up in my mouth a little bit when I read the headline. Seriously, scale those terrific returns. But
it's very thoughtful of you to keep it in your mouth as opposed to spraying it everywhere. But yes, okay.
However, there's a however. I did find the charts useful. I think it gives you not all, but many of the possible use cases. So I liked that about it. I would probably advise people to not bother reading it and just look at the charts, because the actual text I found a bit useless. Let's group use cases together. Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
Hey, these guys make the big bucks. What can I tell you? Ludo, where are you on this?
I was optional.
Optional.
But I agree with the charts are useful. They do good job on charts.
Okay, Adam.
I was actually on the fence, leaning towards important. I challenged Echo actually to get into a little more detail about the specifics, because it's nice to sort of pontificate, and if at the end of the day the message is you really need Bain to help you move these things forward, that's not going to be a very useful article. But it does go into some very specific things that can be done in terms of how people can scale, rather than just being more of sort of this is an important thing you need to think about doing. And for that reason, I was on the fence. And then the second thought I had was, well, that's great, but is it only retail specific? But a lot of the insights it did offer do extend to other verticals as well. So I was probably leaning towards important, but I think David nailed it, which is look at the charts, don't read the article if you want to keep your cover.
All right, so we're going to go for important in this bad boy. A learning curve effect in the context of generative AI, and to think of it in the longer term, they bring us back to 1995 and say, remember those companies that committed to the internet? Look at where they are today. So there we are. All right, important it is. Akash, going for the last one here.
Yeah. So the last one comes from OpenAI and their rival Anthropic. So OpenAI's former safety leader who left recently has joined Anthropic.
All right, so OpenAI loses somebody with a conscience to somebody with they think has a conscience. Okay, here we go. What do you think here, David?
I would call this optional. I'm so on the fence about Anthropic, right? They are doing some great research. They do seem to have some degree of dedication to safety. On the other hand, how did they train this system? A, we don't know. B, we can assume they trained it the way everybody else did, with data that they probably shouldn't have used. So I feel, in one way, I feel like they may be the turtle in the hare race, where they're moving a little slower but a little more carefully, and that could pay off in the end for them. Whereas OpenAI's, drive fast and break things may make them be obsolete in 5 years. But that's just my little spout off on Anthropic. I still find the news optional.
All right, we got an optional here. I had it as an optional. Adam, I'm doing a George Bush. George Bush apparently, when he came for the thing for the Iraq War, came into his cabinet and said, I think we should go to war. What do you think? Which is a really good way to have an open discussion. Anyway, Adam, what do you think?
I consider it optional as well.
All right. I don't think Luna's going for important in this one.
No.
So
Yes,
here we go. All
actually-
right. Optional it is.
John, actually negotiators know this. The first vote is usually where the final vote would be. So I think Judge Bush was right.
Well, if you think you should have gone to war as opposed to.
Well, no, the war is a different topic. It's just like when you want something done, you come in and you say, this is it.
If you want something done. Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, let's not go there. I like leaders that actually want open debate and discussion when you're doing things like go to war, but that's calling me crazy. Okay. All right. So here we have, I think we should take all these folks. I think all of Silicon Valley needs to go for a morals class myself, because they seem to be stumbling their way through the obvious. But here we are. So we have OpenAI, optional, Airbus, optional, AI on trial, EU, ChatGPT, trying to get at least 90, get down from 95% of CIOs who haven't read the GDPR to a little higher. Retail and Gen AI, Bain convincing us that it's important, and a little bit of gossip on folks moving around to Anthropic, not so important. So there we have it. 3 I's, 3 O's, no E's. Well, thanks everybody for coming on. Anything important to tell the audience here today?
Have a good day.
Have a good day, and remember, today is the worst AI you'll ever use. There we have it. Bye, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow.
Bye.